Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. In today's video, I wanted to do a showcase of my World Forge system that is now available in Beta 2 on Gumroad and ArtStation and soon to be on 3D Project Masters, which is my website. It's also on Patreon as well, so for the price of a coffee you can actually get access to this right now, which is it's basically a tool, project, or whatever you want to call it, for building worlds. And I call it the World Forge, and it comes with all sorts of features. It comes with a fully displaced landscape material shader that is extremely versatile, which has snow layers, it has water puddles, you can create rivers on it, all sorts of things like that. In this particular case, this is a lava scene. It also comes packed with the Atmosphere, which is my cloud solution, which you can kind of see there in the distance. These are the clouds that I've got for my particular system. It also comes with Nanite Foliage as well, that is fully dynamic. It has basically a wind system enabled through blueprints. It also has a lot of color variation and all sorts of other neat features like a snow coating as well on top, subsurface scattering, and so on. So what I wanted to do was just showcase some of the features of the World Forge and what options you may have available. It's going to be one of those things where, you know, you're going to have to basically try it out for yourself to see just how versatile it is. I'm going to make specific videos catered towards all of its functions and all of its abilities, but basically, as I develop this particular project, and I will release it on Fab as well very soon, you know, you'll be able to experience it there as well. It's using high quality textures. It's using a lot of the new tech that's available in Unreal Engine 5.3, but it's also available for 5.4 and 5.5. I wanted to make this material be available for as many people as possible, and I'm trying to support all the versions. Obviously, Nanite displacement is quite a difficult tech still at the minute, performance-wise, and it will be improved, but you know, it will take some time, and we are continuously developing it, and I'm sure Epic are developing the Nanite displacement pipeline as well. And you know, I mean, look at these crisp details. Who wouldn't want to have this in their particular game? Obviously it needs a lot more performance improvement before it ends up in that place, and also the collisions need work on, but that's going to be developed by Epic. They've already you know, laid out a roadmap for this. So yeah, have a look and let me know what you think. Let's get started. One of the first things you'll see when you open the World Forge is that we have this map, this very basic map, which has got completely blackness all over, and it has these few meshes around and the foliage that comes with the World Forge. So this foliage here, as you can see, is set up with a wind system, and it's got subsurface scattering and all sorts of other goodies. And also these meshes, which are effectively some sort of like, you know, rock clusters that you can then customize to your liking based on the very advanced parameter, you know, material instance that has loads of parameters to control. But the real goodness of all this comes from the actual, you know, maps in here, where we have a volcano landscape. We also have a stylized mountain type of thing, so we can just show just how flexible the World Forge is. But also, in this particular scene, we do have a BP foliage wind control, which allows us to change various different things about the foliage. Obviously, this system is still in ongoing development. There will be more options added soon into here, which allows you to basically, you know, have a wind that picks up speed as the weather changes, or we'll have, you know, gust intensities or undulation speed, how much the plants can like move around when we do this. So it's going to be various different upgrades to the system as time progresses. But let's just go over and open one of these maps and just see how the World Forge performs and how it looks. Obviously, this is primarily a system built from the ground up to work with displacement, so this was very important to me to get this up and running. And as you can see straight away in this scene, we can see in here the nanite tessellation in place. There is absolutely no mesh in here. It's only the landscape with textures. And we have the foliage now that is spawning across the landscape. Obviously, in a packaged version of this, the foliage would instantly spawn. All of this foliage is nanite, so obviously this means that there are no LODs in here to speak of, but the foliage itself is optimized to run quite well as it is. There's going to be a few sort of like shadow poppings and things like that when you get close to it, when you fly around like this. And this is because the world position offset is limited so that we only get wind in here, and we don't really get wind further away in the scene, just to save up on performance. So obviously performance is a very key factor into the development of this shader. Now with all my projects, obviously the World Forge is another project where we have multiple other options from other projects implemented. So in this particular one, we have the Atmos Forge, which is actually a beta build that I'm working on right now. So the Atmos Forge has loads of options in here that you can customize your clouds, atmosphere, and things like that, right? Some of the new features that I've added is a new type of post-process material that's going to be controllable for the blueprint very soon, where we effectively have a fog system. And as you can see, it sort of like really adds a lot of depthness to the scene if we enable it. And then it also has another particular option. Let me just go back to it because I deselected, where we have this sort of like system that fixes a lot of the jittering in the clouds and noise and so on. So now we've disabled that as well. And as you can see, the scene is a lot more bright without those particular systems in place, like the materials, but they can be fully customized your liking with colors and how much they affect the scene. But this is a volcanic type of landscape. Obviously, there's a lot of plantation in this volcanic landscape, so ignore that. It's more of a showcase. We also have lava rivers going down here, down the stream as well, sort of like accumulating here at the bottom. Again, all of this is landscape shader driven, so there are no actual meshes here doing this, right? It's just all simply in the material. Now we can see that the sun has gone under this cloud. So, sorry, not under the cloud. The cloud is blocking the sun. So let's just actually, put the sun up in the sky a little bit more. We're going to go from a 200 here to maybe like a 240 or something like that. And now you can see that the sun is over there. And again, we're now able to see the scene a lot closer as well. Now I can press the play button here to start playing around in the world. And we can actually walk around with the character and just see the landscape from up close. Now the displacement currently is moderately active. I've not really pushed it too much, but obviously you can get displacement to be a lot higher than what it is right now. And we can go around the world and, obviously all of these are material layers. You can edit them however you like. You can construct and sculpt to your liking as well. One thing you'll notice is that the clouds are shadowing the entire landscape. And by the way, this is quite a performance hit. So what you'd want to do to disable it, which is going to be a feature in the blueprint anyway, but you can go to your to your directional light over here, and you can then deselect the cast cloud shadows, which will then automatically remove any cloud shadows regardless where the sun is. And this will bring a lot of the lighting back in and a lot of performance as well, by the way. So let me just go again, and I probably need to set this up to a lower light, something like 220, something like that, just so we can see that displacement better. Now, the material instance for this, for the World Forge is very intricate. So I'm just going to open it just to showcase some of the features in here. But as you can see, the list is humongous. There's a lot of options in here. Obviously, we've got 6 layers of material that we can control and add textures and displacement. But we also have main parameters, UV breakup, which is basically the way that we're doing all the mixing of the terrain to look quite different. We've got water puddles, we've got a snow layer, we've got displacement parameters, and all sorts of slope systems as well. Now, if I enable water puddles as an example, this will literally do just that. It will add water puddles in our environment, and we can go back to our landscape, and you will notice that they are now spawning in here. Let's just wait for the scene to load a little bit. It's got some shaders to compile. But now all of a sudden you can see here we've got, like I've said to you, water puddles. And these obviously build around the lava. That's not exactly great, but you'd paint them out wherever the lava is spawned. But I just want you to kind of look at this, right? How good that looks in the overall scene. It's actually, really convincing. And in case you haven't noticed, these static meshes that we have in here, we have a few static meshes right here spawned with the instant foliage actor. These are R.A.V.T as well. They basically blend with the environment perfectly. So there's no real transition there that you'll notice too much. It's actually, they're all embedded within the environment. We just build that scene even further. The foliage itself is reactive a little bit to the character. It's not perfect. It is shaded driven, so don't think that this is based on a skeletal mesh or anything like that. But it's performant and it does the job, and it's quite good. With Nanite Foliage, sorry, with Nanite Displacement, sometimes you'll get issues like these shadows here in Unreal Engine 5.3. This is what it's running at right now in 5.3. In Unreal Engine 5.5, you don't really get these issues at all. Now, what's really interesting about this is that if you, for example, exit out of play mode, the error is gone, and then if you play again, the error might not be there. Now, in a build level, you won't have this problem at all, but yeah, right now here, it is a bit of an issue. As I said, in 5.5, they completely fixed that, and the performance of Unreal Engine 5.5 with Nanite Displacement is actually extremely high as well. It's about 40% higher than what it was in 5.3, so quite a big gain. Now, this landscape is very much dependent on how you set it up, what sort of slopes you've got. You can see in here various different materials blending together, but let's just push it further, right? Because right now it's actually quite dull in a way. I'm just going to go in the material itself, the big material itself. As you can see, there's you know, we're talking about a lot of instructions. It's actually 334 instructions for the material shader, so it's not that bad, but what I mean is there's a lot of things going on. What we can do in here, we can turn up the magnitude to 1, and I'm going to press apply, which effectively will bring up the Nanite displacement in this quite high. So again, this is a featured overview. I'm not talking about setting up or anything like that. There are other videos for that. But specifically, this is just me talking about what's available within the WorldForge. Once that's done and the system processes a new displacement, look at that. This is now pumping up upwards quite a lot. So the displacement is now really creating massive amounts of, you know, well, I want to say thickness. I would say like literally eating away at the environment, creating such structures as you know, digs and all kinds of banks and things like that, right? And even the water itself is now you know, creating sort of like slopes downwards where it will sort of like bunch up together. So that's really cool. And you can see here just how cool it is without any static meshes, that we effectively have a cliff in here that looks a lot more natural than without Nanite displacement. So obviously this is the next level of getting a higher quality environment, because you don't have to set dress everything. Some of this stuff could be handled by the landscape displacement itself, and you just don't have to, like, as I said, do a lot of set dressing as what you normally would have to. But this is, you know, look at that, like, look at that crevice of lava just kind of flowing downwards in here towards the river, and you can obviously increase the intensity of that if you want in the material shader. There are a lot of options going on for you like that. Now, one of the things that we could enable here is effectively bring up our well, snow. So I'm just going to go over here into the material. I'm going to make sure that I'm actually editing the material instance itself. So just opening that over here, and then I'm going to type in snow, and I can click the button over here to enable snow in the environment, and this activates a bunch of parameters as well. And then the entire environment will be filled with snow, and a new displacement layer will be added. As you can see over there on those meshes, the R.A.V.T is already playing, so you know, it's already adding a lot of different effects. Let me just go to the Atmos Forge, and I'm going to make sure that the clouds are showing up, and I'm also going to make sure that our lighting is a bit more reduced, so we can get a bit more of that sort of like the snow effect in here. And one thing that we can do about these meshes as well, we could turn these into snow as well. So I'm just going to go over here into our materials, and I'm going to go to static meshes, and I believe this particular one is this one, rock formation 03. I'm just going to drag it in like that. I'm going to type in snow, and then I'm going to tick it, and this should as well enable snow for these meshes, which is really cool. And of course, we have a lot of options in here. Like right now, that snow is a bit too blue-ish, like you know, like darker, right? But now I've made it a bit whiter, and obviously all of this is controlled through loads of parameters. And just to show you exactly how that snow plays like into the actual environment itself, I'm gonna go to the main. Actually, no, I'm going to go to this rock formation showcase in here. And actually, not this one. Sorry, this other one is actually better to showcase the rocks themselves. So this is a material shader that we have, and I've got in here the snow turned on. You can see it over here on the rocks themselves. If I edit the material, this one, I am then able to dictate, for example, how high the snow is showing up. So for example, we could go to snow, where is it now? Not the height offset, the snow world height. Okay, so if we increase this number, you'll notice that the snow is going higher and higher. So it means that it's going to be on the peaks of these rocks. So imagine if this was a mountain, then the snow will be building up on the peaks of that. But if we decrease this, if we increase the number, sorry, the snow will go down like that. And as you can see in here, these rocks are blending quite nicely with this plane. Over here, we have snow as well. It's a bit too bright in this area, so the snow is a bit too glowy. But if we disable the snow, which was this particular material instance, then these meshes will be seen as they are. So if I click play in here and I move around with the character, you'll notice just they're very detailed. These particular ones don't have nanite displacement, but this one here does. So you can see there the displacement creating all these crevices. It's quite an interesting kind of look, I would say. It definitely adds a lot more personality to this rock formation as it would look without it. So we can actually disable nanite displacement just so you can kind of appreciate the difference here. I'm just going to type in displacement and I'm going to say no to displacement, and that's what this particular asset would look like without the displacement. And again, it's not bad or anything, obviously it's, I think it's really detailed and so on, but this is the difference with and without nanite. So that's quite interesting as well. Now, what I want to show you is the foliage as well. So I've got here all the foliage that comes with the World Forge. All of this is, active. We also have a BP foliage wind control in here, but I'm just going to delete it just for the sake of it so I can show you. Now, I'm going to go to the foliage tool, and I've got all this foliage selected with density of 50. So I'm just going to drop a few of them here and there, right? Something like that. Now, what you'll notice is that the foliage is moving around, which is quite nice. But if it's actually static for whatever reason, the thing that you need to do is make sure that you drop in the BP foliage wind control, which will then allow for the foliage to properly, move around from the wind. And you can create various patterns with these particular options, but there's a lot more inside the material shader of the foliage if you'd like to control it further. Now, I'm going to be going over back into here, and I'll select all the foliage, disable everything, and just add the horsetail. And I'm going to put the horsetail maybe to a density of 200, so just I can add more, maybe even more, maybe 500, just so we can add more horsetail in the scene, maybe something like that. Okay, so there's a lot of horsetail. Now, obviously, that's a very interesting name. Right, there's a lot of horsetail in our scene right now that's moving about. And what we've got in here is the ability to, change its colors. So, for example, if we go back into our horsetail mesh, I am just going to open its material instance. I'm going to go back to our map so we can have a look at what we're changing. So some of the things in here is, for example, it's got this vertex highlight tint. Now, for example, I could make that into a blue color, and you can see just how it changed, but not everything looks the same. So it's the same static mesh over and over again, but it obviously has quite a few different kind of looks, right? And you can do this with so many different patterns in here and change it, but that's just one option. There are multiple other options, like for example, we could increase subsurface scattering or decrease it completely. We have roughness and all sorts of things like that. We also have color variation. So, for example, we could select a color variation of a lighter color there, maybe something like a yellowish, something like that, okay? And then we have another variation color, which could be, I don't know, maybe let's just leave it to a blue. But now you're noticing that this blue here isn't exactly visible. So we could just play around with the frequency of how many times it actually happens. Now, some of the things in here is that you will have to toy with these settings quite a lot in order to get the effect that you're looking for. Because a lot of the times, as I said, it's just important that you, play around with the intensity, play around with the contrast, and eventually you'll get the look that you want. Otherwise, you can see in here that I am changing things. I'm not sure if it's even visible on the YouTube page, but there are some changes going on. It's just they're very minimal. So I'm going to do like a 5 maybe in there and something like that. You'll be able to notice as it darkens it, as I change it. Now, one thing in here, we have this blue channel. We're probably going to have to change this to like a green or a red or something like that, just so we can Yeah, there we go, right? We're now seeing a bit of more variation in the plants. Now, another thing in here is we have color brightness that we can increase, or we have an AO contrast in order to darken the foliage as well to get more shadows in there. We also have a wetness intensity in order to make the plant a lot more, basically wet, but it's not very visible on this particular one. Just bear in mind that right now, because we have so many of these plants in here, which I think is probably a bit of an overkill on the horsetail of how many we can have in one place. I think we'll go with the density of 200 or something like that, because they're just all been competing for lighting conditions, and we also have all the surface around here is what do you call it? It's not very rough. It's actually reflective, so it's kind of affecting how the horsetail looks like. Now, there's a lot of wind controls in here as well. As you can see, a lot of options. In each of these will do various different things. I'm just going to let you explore. We've also got use snow type of ability. So once you click that in, the horsetail will actually turn into white. So you can now have it look, quite nice in a winter scene. There's also the reactive, sort of like options for it. So if the foliage is more reactive to your character as they walk around, this allows it to, for example, you could trample on this a lot better as well. So I'm just trying to get into a position here where, maybe something like that. And if I change these options, like, you can see in here, obviously it can go quite crazy. So just be careful with how you change them. Like for example, the trample intensity here is higher, so that means that when the character is walking around, they'll just be able to trample a bit more of this. Just be careful with how you change things. But yeah, the foliage itself is, again, a massive material type with a lot of options. There's a lot of material functions involved in here, one for wind, one for the actual control of colors and so on, another one for snow, and we also have one for reactive in here. So there's a lot of things to change, and I am planning on covering each of these in subsequent videos dedicated to particular parts of this pipeline. And to give you an idea of, the World Forge being used on a large scale, as you can see here, this is an environment that's extremely big. It has a water plane outside. It's not an ocean, it's more like a lake kind of thing that's protruding through the landscape. But most of these effects here that you're seeing are actually puddles on the landscape. So you can see here it's extremely large. All the effects are really natural as well. So if we go over here into the scene, somewhere around here maybe, we can now press play. You can see the foliage is also spawning in the scene as well. So my character is going to fall down here, and I'm going to be able to walk over on the landscape, and foliage will spawn all around me. And this is using currently a mask to basically say I don't want any foliage to spawn wherever the water is most intense on the landscape. So it's, basically avoiding spawning in areas like this here, because there's just too much water still on the landscape in these areas. Well, obviously we're going to get to a point where the water isn't so predominant, like here, and then we'll have foliage that is now spawning or has spawned. This really looks very beautiful from far away. Obviously, you can replace the foliage with whatever you want. This is just what comes in as a basic sort of foliage for the World Forge. And you can do all sorts of sort of like settings. In Unreal Engine 5.5 and above, we will have PCG as well. That's going to be added to this. Currently, it's just using a landscape grass type, which is not ideal for Nanite foliage. It's not exactly working very well with Nanite foliage. But this will have to do for now. Unfortunately, I don't really have a better option than this. But yeah, this is an extremely large scale environment. It runs with Atmos Forge, World Forge, the foliage from World Forge. We have the, sort of like landscape puddles. We don't have displacement enabled on this because as of Unreal Engine 5.3, it's very unstable to activate displacement on such a large scale landscape. But from 5.5 and above, depending on your hardware, you can use it. But I wouldn't recommend extremely massive scale scenes with nanite displacement. I don't think anybody can get that running, especially such a complicated material like the one that I've got here, which just blends so many layers. But yeah, obviously that's going to develop in the future into a better solution, I'm sure. In the meantime, obviously we can only work with what we've got, and this is what we've got so far. I really like the overall look and feel of this, and just basically how you know, how useful I think it will be for people. Now, this landscape, as I said, is very large. You can see in here the cloud shadows are shadowing a lot of it right now. And one thing here to do, for example, if we go to the directional light and we disable the cloud shadows, which, as I said, also improves performance by quite a bit, you can see the landscape is really, really big. And there's a lot of layers in here being sort of like blended together. You'll notice that there's a cliff, different cliffs, different sort of like levels. And I'm using only just a simple basic set of textures from Megascans here, but obviously you can do so much more different sort of blends. And as I said, there is a water shader material here as well, which is going to help you further sell this scene further, you know, enhancing it with water that has refraction, and it also blends quite well in the environment. You can see right there, it sort of like has an effect when it reaches the actual shoreline. Now I've got, this is a bit over bright. I think the bloom is too high on this particular scene, so I think if we go in here in the post process, I believe that's going to be way too much. So I'm just going to go to bloom. Yeah, convolution set to very large numbers, so maybe go to like a 2 or something like that, which should help us with all that bloom. But yeah, that's what I've got in this particular level here. I hope you guys like the showcase of the World Forge here today. Hopefully you've seen something that you like. Let me know what you think in the comments section below if you have any questions about it. If you want to ask me about support, I know quite a few people have already got it and they're already sharing project with me of what they've done so far. So I'm happy to share some of that on my YouTube channel or on my Discord if you guys want to have a look. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I think I'm going to release a tutorial this week. But if not, it will be next week. It's going to be all about foliage performance improvement. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching and take care.